Alright guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today. For this one we are doing another out and about video. So I'm still here in Berlin. We're just close to the Ostkreuz station and we're going to check out this place, Strassenbräu. It seems to have very good ratings on Untappd and Rate Beer. So we'll go in and do as we always do. We'll have a little look around the bar, we'll have a look at the menu, maybe try some of the food, and most importantly we're going to have a look at some of the beers. So let's do this. Alright guys, yeah, so this is it, Strassenbräu. So just down there, that is the Ostkreuz Bahnhof, and you also have a tram line up this way as well. I'm not sure exactly what stop you could get off at there, but yeah, typical kind of East Berlin sort of street. Looks really cool. But yeah, let's go in and we'll have a wee look around. It's a really nice bar actually. But yeah, I've been in, had a little look. And yeah, let's go inside and I'll show you guys. So yeah, when you come in, it's very, very modern. Nice bar there, you can see all around. There's a good tap list, but we'll come back to that in a little minute. And yeah, really nice, kind of very modern feeling bar, this one. Obviously getting some barrels and stuff delivered, which is pretty cool. But yeah, let's go and have a wee sit down. I'm going to sit over here. And we'll get some beers ordered and we'll do some tastings. So there we go. So yeah, here's a little look at the tap list for you then. So yeah, they've got quite a few German classics and some more kind of modern things. So a very, very good mix here. So yeah, they've got a Pilsner, a Helles, Pale Ale, Doppelbock, Hefeweizen, a Witbier, of course, Hazy IPA. Yeah, Russian Imperial Stout as well. You don't find too many German brewed Russian Imperial Stouts just in, you know, brew pubs these days. But yeah, Märzen, a bourbon barrel aged alt beer. We'll need to try that. Dunkel. Yeah, these are all pretty nice looking beers. So I'll need to make a choice. It's a bit hard. Right guys, so what we're going to do is do this video in two parts. I'm going to get two tasting flights. The first one that we do is going to be German, and the second one is going to be a mix of other things, including some of the more American style beers. So yeah, on this first one we have the Helles beer, then we have a Märzen, then we have a Dunkel, and then the last one is a bourbon barrel-aged alt beer. Not something you come across every day. So let's have a look at these. I should point out as well, this tasting flight, or the beer set as they call it, costs €9.50. So that's about £8 sterling, about $12 American, and then yeah, about 100 Swedish kroner. So yeah, pretty awesome prices, I have to say. This is why we love Germany. Alright guys, so time for our first tasting then here at Strassenbräu in Ostkreuz, Berlin. So yeah, we're going to start off with the lighter beers as we usually do, and the first one is a recommendation from the barman. I was trying to decide between the Pilsner and the Helles, and he told me he liked the Helles more. So that's what we're going to start with. You can't go wrong with a nice German Helles lager. So this particular beer is called Heimweh. It comes in at 4.8% ABV, and it looks pretty much as you would expect from this style. So yeah, lovely kind of pale golden straw colour here. This one you can see is clear. Sometimes these beers can be quite hazy, they're unfiltered, but when it poured it had a nice kind of half finger of a frothy, I would have said creamy coloured head, but that has just faded away to be a kind of slightly thinner layer on top. But yeah, it looks the part, not too much carbonation visible in this one. So let's take a look at the aroma. Yeah, aroma wise, pretty solid and pretty much what you'd expect. So straight away with this one you get lots of nice bready character out of it. And you know, when it comes to a Helles lager, there are two types. You have the Dortmunder Helles, which in my experience is a little bit more hoppy and bitter, but you also have the Münchner Helles, the Munich Helles, which is a little bit more bready and malty, and this one really seems to be leaning toward that. And of course you can compare these beers as well to the Czech Svetli style, the Czech blonde lager. But yeah, this one really, from aroma, it's more akin to a Munich Helles. So yeah, smells quite nice. So the backbone of this beer, it has got a little bit of a grainy bread crust to it. You can smell that sort of fresh, white bready sort of thing. The bread actually comes across as quite crisp almost, which is interesting. But yeah, on top of that, you do have, you don't get much of a kind of, you don't get much of a sweetness out of this. There is a tiny little bit of a biscuity note to it. But yeah, as I say, grainy bread crust, kind kind of crisp white bread, a little bit of a there's a little teeny bit of like a McVitie's digestive biscuit, but yeah, nothing else really to kind of report in the malt base. So yeah, aroma wise, this one is pretty damn nice from the malty side of things. On the hoppy side of the beer, a little bit of earthiness for sure. Yeah, a little bit of earthiness there. You've got that nice bright floral aromaticity from the German hops. I think this might have something a bit stronger than the regular Hallertau Tettnanger, maybe like Pearl or Hercules or something, because it does have a wee bit more spicy note to it. Bit of a bright grassiness. And on the fruity side of things, it's what you'd expect. You know, you get a little bit of this kind of sultana, kind of peary type ester out of it, and those kind of fresh grassy notes, but a really nice smelling beer, I have to say. So let's have a look at this then, let's taste it. So the Heimweh 4.8% Helles Lager from Strassenbräu. Here we go, Slange, Skål, cheers, Prost. They have got a nice music taste in here as well, actually. I have to compliment them on that. It's good. But I'm going to say straight away, this is a lovely, very nice, just clean and drinkable Helles Lager, but this is what you want from the style. But yeah, definitely leaning toward that more kind of Munich style in terms of the flavour profile, but it does have a wee bit of the more kind of crisp cleanliness you would expect of a Dortmunder Helles. So yeah, interesting stuff. And this is, as I've said before, what you're seeing in Germany now is the styles from different regions spreading about all over the place. So it's exciting times in the German beer scene just now. But yeah, this is very nice. So let's break it down for you. So, on the malty side of things, then middle of your palate, you can feel bread crusty backbone, absolutely. One or two little sort of Jacob's cream cracker type vibes in there. Maybe a teeny little bit of woodiness toward the front of that middle third of your palate. But yeah, bread crusty backbone, smooth white bread, a little bit of a crackery note in it. In the dead centre of your palate, I think there is a little touch of like a biscuit. I do start to get a wee bit of a McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of sweetness the further into the aftertaste that I go. But yeah, it's pretty damn solid that in terms of the malt base. This is exactly what you want, but nice and crisp and clean, which is good. On the hoppy side of things, yeah, hoppy side of this beer, exactly kind of as we described from the aroma. So a little bit of a kind of nice earthy character there. As you move further forward, you get a little bit of herbal note, and as you reach the front corners of the palate, you've got a little bit of a more kind of floral aromatic sort of thing. Around the front curve of the palate, it's a little bit lighter and grassy, and you do get a wee bit of zestiness out of that, but it has a little bit of that kind of smooth brightness that you get from the German noble hops. On the front third of your palate then, the base is definitely soft and bready. You get a wee bit of oily fruity character on top of it. And yeah, the fruity side of this one, you get, it's kind of as I was describing the aroma, you get a little bit of that kind of sultana, dried white green grapey kind of thing. There's a wee bit of a slightly oily pear to it, and then as you move into the front half of that front third of your palate, it's a more kind of grassy, sort of very slightly lemony, grassy, zesty ester that you get out of it. But yeah, overall, a really nice beer, this one. Kind of, it's almost, the more that I drink of it, the more that I think it's somewhere between the Dortmunder and the Münchner Helles, but I like it. It's good, easy drinking. This is what you want from the style. Mouthfeel wise, quite light bodied, I would say. Definitely light bodied. Carbonation is quite crisp, more obvious than you would expect from looking at the beer. Malt base is nice and smooth, a little bit grainy. A wee tiny touch of sweetness to it as well. In terms of IBUs, I think this is like 20 IBUs, something like that, maybe 15, maybe a little bit less. And the fruity side of things, I'd say quite wet fruity side. But yeah, a nice Helles beer, this one. So yeah, this was the Heimweh from Strassenbräu. Let's go on to our next one. Yeah guys, another little random thing for you. They've got their own bottles and cans and stuff, which are pretty cool. If I'd actually booked a case with me this time, I probably would have bought some of these and taken them back to Sweden with me, but that's pretty cool, really nicely done. You can see they've got the Strassenbräu symbol is the German double S, which is pretty awesome. So yeah, awesome. Here's the kind of prices for you as well. So remember, yeah, €1 is about 10 Swedish kroner, about 80 pence, maybe about $1.20. So yeah, reasonable prices for these cans as well, so that's great. Alright guys, so time for beer tasting number 2 then. So the second beer we're going to have a look at is the Märzen. So yeah, this one comes in at 5.5% ABV and it is called Märzen. So yeah, this one is, it looks very, very nice. I mean, you can see that lovely kind of rich coppery colour that this one has. The Märzen, of course, is kind of an amber lager, I guess we could say, but these beers were originally brewed in March and then left in the Kellers for about 6 months or so and then drank at Oktoberfest, so they were always a little bit stronger and things like that. But of course there was that rule. It used to be that during the summer brewing beer was banned because of the temperature and things. The Germans took their brewing very, very seriously in that case. But yeah, we can compare the Märzen to the Czech Svetli lager, the Czech amber lager. They are kind of similar but a little bit different. The Czech ones of course are a little bit more bready. The Vienna lager, I guess, is a little bit similar too, but those tend to be a bit more kind of like grainy and brown bready for sure. For me, a Märzen is usually quite a crisp and sort of biscuity flavoured lager beer. But yeah, you can see this one looks really nice. It has that typical sort of, you know, unstained mahogany, kind of coppery colour to it. When it poured, once again, it had about a half finger of a frothy, I would say kind of like fawn coloured head on this one, a very light beige tint to it. But again, you can see not too much carbonation visible in this beer. One or two little bubbles kind of floating around though. But in terms of what you would expect appearance wise from Märzen, this one gives you everything that you'd want. So yeah, let's look at the aroma and see what we can get from this guy. Oh yeah, that's nice. I'm going to say this is one of the sweeter Märzens that I've come across over the last little while. Yeah, so it's got a lovely sweet kind of brown bready base to it, like a wholemeal bread. I wouldn't go as far as saying like rye bread. Rye bread is a lot more kind of grainy and things like that. You'd probably expect that more from a Dunkel lager. But yeah, the aroma that you get out of this for me is, it hits the spot for what you would want from a Märzen. So yeah, lovely little bit of kind of wholemeal, brown bready character. A lot of, I do get quite a bit of sweet caramel out of this, but underneath that you get the more kind of oily McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing. So yeah, that kind of nice, I think you would say cookies. I never know with Germans these days whether they speak more American English or kind of British English, so a sort of cookie, McVitie's digestive biscuit sort of thing. I hope that makes sense. But yeah, nice oily, kind of sweet caramelly note to it, and yeah, a smooth wholemeal brown bready note. I really like that. The malt base in this one is really, really nicely done. Yeah, this is nice smelling from this, and I think the malt base in these lager beers is often underestimated, but you guys know from watching the channel for a long time, I'm a huge sucker for these kind of big German malt bases. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things, it is again what you would expect. You've got this lovely kind of you do have this lovely little bit of earthiness to this one. There's a wee bit of herbal character in there as well, but once again you get that smooth but still quite bright floral aromaticity and the kind of slightly zesty grassiness. So yeah, very, very nice smelling beer, I have to say. Yeah, aroma wise, that is very, very nice. Yeah, on the fruity side of things, it's kind of what you expect. I always find you get like a little touch of a red fruitiness out of these beers as well. So you have this kind of oily, peary note, you still get that kind of sultana, dry, white, green, grapey note. But for me, I just get a little tiny bit of a very light, it's almost like a very, very light kind of candied strawberry, or almost like weird kind of lychee type thing. So yeah, I just get a wee tiny touch of a kind of red fruity note out of this. But yeah, of course, lots of oily pear. That kind of dried sultana type note as well. Yeah, really nice big oily fruits, and this is what you're going to get from a more sort of caramelly, biscuity leaning malt base. So yeah, a nice smelling Märzen, this one. Let's have a look at this beer. So yeah, this is the Märzen, a 5.5% Märzen, and we'll have a taste. Slange skull, cheers, Prost. Oh yeah. This one, again, it's got a real cleanliness to the mouthfeel and a wee bit of oily slickness. I really like that, for sure. Yeah, you know, sometimes you get beers that just kind of strike you and it just hits the spot, and for me, this one really, really does hit the spot for a Märzen. This is like just kind of bang on. You'll find lots of good examples of these, of course, but this one, mouthfeel wise, and just the way everything goes together, that is a really, really nice Märzen lager. So pleased with this, very pleased with this. And as I say, still enjoying the music. So, malty backbone of this one, definitely a bit of a bread crusty note there, like a wholemeal, slightly dry brown bready bread crust. On top of that, there's a wee bit of a more, on top of that you have a little bit of a more kind of wholemeal brown bready sort of thing. You do start to get a little bit of graininess and dryness and stuff out of it the further you go into the aftertaste. One or two little woody notes in this one, particularly toward the front of that middle third of your palate, and then yeah, on top of that kind of bready layer, you get like a kind of, there's a circle in the middle of your palate. You get that McVitie's digestive biscuity note there, but it's a little bit of a toasty brown sugar as well, a more oily brown sugar right in the dead centre of your palate. And that again is really, really nice. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things, a little bit of an earthy quality in the back corners of the palate. I do find the earthiness is fairly strong in this one, but as you come further forward it becomes a wee bit herbal, and as you push toward the kind of front corners of the palate, it's got a little bit of a more kind of floral, aromatic-y sort of thing to it. But round the front curve of the palate, a wee bit of a lighter, grassy sort of vibe to it. But yeah, it works. It certainly does work in that sense. The hoppy side of this beer is quite nice, a wee bit more herbal and earthy than I'm used to with this style as well, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, I like how this one goes together for sure. Lovely Märzen beer. Yeah, that is good. On the front third of the palate then, base of that is definitely the kind of brown bread, but it's a little bit sweeter. On top of that, that nice oily bubble once again, with the juicy fruity esters, and it's quite like I described from the aroma. You get a bit of this kind of sultana-y, dry white green grape. You get yeah, so you get a sultana, dry white green grapey kind of thing. I'd say you start to get more oily pear as you come further forward, and I do get, it gets more, the peary notes get more oily and sweet the further forward you go. There's a teeny little bit of that red fruity sort of thing, like a very, very, very light candied strawberry, or maybe even a teeny bit of like lychee or something like that. I do get just a hint of red fruit out of this one, but not a lot. It really is more about a big kind of oily, quite sweet peary note. Maybe a teeny little hint of orange, something like that. Maybe they've used oh, the name of the hop's gone right in my head, Zafir. Maybe they've used a little bit of Zafir hop in this one, because that, in lagers like this, that can give you just a wee hint of orange. So I'd be curious to know about that. But really nice, kind of clean, oily Märzen. This is what you'd want. So let's finish with a mouthfeel. Mouthfeel wise, it's bottom end and mid bodied for me. Smooth carbonation, nice oily slick mouthfeel. The malt base has a bit of graininess to it, a bit of smoothness, and also the sweetness you want from this style. IBUs, I think, roughly about 20, which again is to be expected. And then you also just have a nice bit of oily fruity character. In all, a really nice Märzen, this one. A style that I don't get to look at all that often, but I've enjoyed this one. So let's go on to our next beer then. This one was the Märzen, 5.5% ABV. Alright guys, so just a little quick look at the menu here. You can see this is pretty much the same as the tap list. It is the same, exact same thing. But there you can see some of the prices. So for a Pilsner, for example, we've got €3 for a 0.3, €3.80 for a 0.4, and €4.50 for a 0.5. So yeah, remember again, €1 is about 80 pence, $1.20, and about 10 Swedish kroner. So yeah, that kind of gives you an idea. The prices are very reasonable. But the thing you notice about this place when you look at the menu, and of course this is one of the things that we've been doing, the taster set, the Pro Beer, €9.50 for 4 little 0.1 litre beers. I've enjoyed that, I have to say. But yeah, you will notice that this place, it is simply like a drinking bar. So you've got lots of different wines and stuff in here. Different things in here, different spirits and stuff like that, which you'll see behind the bar. You do get a few things there. There's like brewing courses and stuff as well, which is pretty cool. But yeah, alcohol-free drinks, mixed drinks, you know, like how would you say, like radlers and stuff like this. And yeah, a few other things, bar snacks and coffee. They've got a big nice coffee machine over there. So yeah, this is a proper like drinking cafe bar, kind of cafe beer bar, I guess we could say. So yeah, this one, not like the brew pubs, the Brauhauses that we visited in the past, but that's a little quick look at the Strassenbräu menu for you, but very reasonably priced, which you're always going to find in Germany. Awesome stuff. Alright guys, time for tasting number 3 then. So for this one, we are going to go on to one of my favourite styles of German beer. So this one is the Dunkel Lager, and it is simply just called Dunkels. So yeah, this comes in at 5% ABV, and it looks once again as you would expect from the style. So when this beer poured, about a half finger of a frothy, I would say again kind of fawn coloured head. It looks really nice. That's faded away, of course, just to be a kind of thinner layer, but the beer has been sitting for a wee while because it is in a tasting flight. But yeah, this looks very nice. You can see this one has a more kind of dark chestnutty colour to it, but once again, it's quite nice and clear. You can compare the German Dunkel, of course, to the Czech Czerny beer. Those ones, of course, generally speaking, German lagers are a bit kind of crisper and kind of crisp and clean in my opinion, whereas the Czech ones are a bit more sort of bready and yeasty. That's the main difference. But yeah, this one's got that lovely kind of dark chestnutty colour that you would expect of the Dunkel Lager. For me, some of these can be more kind of oily and brown sugary and a bit toasty sometimes, but they can also be a wee bit bready, and I'm quite curious to see what this one is going to be like, particularly since we've just had the Märzen, and it was quite a nice oily and sweet one. So yeah, let's get stuck into this and see where we're going to go. So aroma wise, ooh, that's interesting. Aroma wise, this one is kind of like, it's actually quite like aromatic in some ways. I'm getting a lot of kind of floral character out of it. Didn't expect that. But yeah, once you get over that, you get a lovely kind of sweet, almost like German rye bready base to this one. Yeah, this is really nice. Yeah. That's pretty awesome. So, the backbone of this beer, absolutely, a little bit of that kind of rye bread crust, a sweet German rye bread sort of thing coming out of this one. Of course, with the Dunkel, you're always going to get a little bit of a nutty, woody undertone to it, and you can pick that up here straight away. But on top of that, you've got lots of kind of nice brown sugar. So, for me, the brown sugary note in this one, it's actually like quite a crisp, it's actually quite a toasty brown sugary note out of this one. I don't get so much in the way of a kind of oily character. So yeah, lovely kind of oily. There is a wee touch of an oily note right in the middle, but mainly this is a lovely kind of crisp, slightly toasty brown sugary note that you're getting out of this one. I wouldn't describe it as tree colour molasses or anything. It is quite a bright, but still toasty brown sugar that you're getting out of this one. It's a very nice malt base you have on this, and it is exactly what you would expect from a Dunkel Lager. Very nice. But this one, it seems as if it's quite well balanced between the brown sugars and the bread. Sometimes these beers can go either way. It's actually, I was talking about the Vienna Lager earlier. This one has some of the kind of breadiness and slight graininess that you would get from the Vienna Lager, but of course the brown sugars are a wee bit more dark and toasty. So yeah, this is interesting for sure. Really nice. On the hoppy side of things, yeah, this one for me is interesting because you do get a little bit of the earthiness and a little bit of the herbal character we've had, but I actually find this has got a nice wee bit of floral note to it, so that's awesome. But on the front of the nose, there's definitely a little bit of a kind of like grassy, zesty sort of thing, which I really like. But you've also got a nice, a really nice little bit of just fruity character in this one. So yeah, for me on the fruity side of things, yeah, this one's a lot more kind of red fruity. Like you're getting a little bit of an oily figgy character out of it, a wee bit of kind of black currant. Yeah, aroma-wise, this beer I think is. This one's very, very nice. It goes together, it does go together really quite nicely in that sense. The fruity side of thing, as I say, a little bit black curranty, a sort of oily figgy kind of thing. Yeah, it works really, really nicely for sure. Yeah, everything you would want from the aroma of a Dunkel Lager beer. So yeah, let's take a wee look at the taste of this one then. As I always say, take a bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck in, but let's taste this now. So yeah, this one is simply called Dunkel's 5% Dunkel Lager, one of my favourite German styles. Let's do this. Ooh, yeah. This one, really smooth and a lovely kind of smooth bready backbone to it. But when you go into the aftertaste, it starts to show the more grainy and toasty side of the style. That's nice. That is nice. I was wondering, I really wasn't sure about this, but we're seeing from these beers, we've tried a Helles, a Märzen, and now a Dunkel. They're showing really different sides. So I mean, probably they brew these styles a little, like quite often, and change it about, make one that's more sweet, make one that's more bready, and so on. So yeah, this one is really nice. Quite a bready and very smooth Dunkel beer, this. So let's break it down for you. Yeah, nice wee bit of kind of roast. As I say, the bread crust that you get out of this one is actually like a toasty, it's like a well-fired morning bread roll. It's kind of like that. My dad loves eating those bacon rolls, really toasty top. But yeah, toasty, well-fired bread crust there on top, and that gives you a bit of dryness into the aftertaste. But on top of that, really nice, smooth, sweet, slightly sweet, like German rye bread. There, of course, toward the front of that middle third of the palate, there's a wee bit of a kind of nutty. Yeah, you do get a little bit of a sort of nutty and woody vibe out of the beer, but on top of that, yeah, roasty, toasty brown sugars, and they kind of dominate. There's not really a sweet, oily centre to this beer that you can sometimes get from the Dunkel. So yeah, this one, it's more, that's the difference between the aroma and the flavour. This one's got a more roasty, toasty, grainy side to it, actually, the further that you go into the flavour with it. But I like it, I do like this. Yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate, you've got a nice wee bit of earthiness there. As you move, and the earthiness is actually quite prominent in this one, but as you move further forward, there's a wee bit of a herbal character, and as you reach, pardon me, the front corners of the tongue, a little bit of a more kind of slightly, it's got a bright floral aromaticity to it. Then around the front curve of the palate, a bit more of a kind of lighter, grassy sort of thing, and it's a wee bit kind of wet as well, actually. So it's got a nice wet, grassy kind of vibe to it. So yeah, goes really nicely. Fruity side of things then, base of the front third of your palate, you get a bit of that dry, grainy bread, but on top of it, nice oily, fruity kind of vibes. And yeah, the fruity side. Yeah, the fruity, oily side of this beer for me, it's a little bit of a kind of blackcurranty, like a juicy kind of blackcurranty sort of thing. I don't quite get the big oily figgy notes I was picking up in the aroma. But yeah, a little bit of just a soft kind of blackcurranty type vibe to this one. But then on the front, the fruity side of things, the kind of toasty, bready note pushes its way out a wee bit more. But yeah, I do like how this beer goes about its business, that's for sure. Yeah, a nice Dunkel beer, this one, quite toasty and grainy, but it's got a smooth breadiness in the middle of it and just a wee bit of the fruitiness. Interesting, that one's really interesting. So yeah, this was simply called Dunkel's 5% Dunkel Lager beer. Let's go on to our next one then. Alright guys, well, time for our fourth beer tasting then here at Strassenbräu. So yeah, the one that we're going to have a look at now is a little bit different. So this one is the Friedrichshain, and this is actually by Brauerei Schnieke, which is the side project of Strassenbräu's brewer. So yeah, it is a 5.5% bourbon barrel-aged alt beer. So yeah, Marco, the barman, has been sitting chatting to me for a little bit, the guy in the green top, telling me about the company and things. So yeah, he was telling me that Schnieke is like a German word for, like, you know, meaning that something is nice. You know, if someone dresses nicely, this is the kind of word you would use. So kind of like sneak in Swedish, I guess we could say. But yeah, to find bourbon barrel-aged alt beer is really unusual. So the alt beer, of course, is an ale. This one isn't a lager. This comes from Düsseldorf. So yeah, I haven't tried too many alt beers, but you know, when you find something unusual like this in a brew pub, you just have to go for it and have a look at it. So yeah, in my experience, the alt beer is a nice kind of smooth, brown bready sort of thing, mix of biscuit and caramel, and you also get a little bit of red fruity character out of it. So yeah, this I thought would be a really, really interesting beer, and it was one of Marco's recommendations. You can just see him over there doing this inversely, that's Marco. But yeah, looks really nice. As you can see, lovely kind of mix between, you know, I think this is a kind of light chestnut colour, this one, if you look at that. When the beer poured, it had about a half finger of a frothy, I would have said kind of fawn, kind of creamy coloured head. There's not too much carbonation visible in this one, but once again, It is quite a clean beer, this. I like it. I'd be curious to know how much the barrel aging affected the colour of this beer, because remember, there's a few different things that can affect the colour of your beer. The types of malt you use, the length of your wort boil, any adjuncts you put in, and also any barrel aging that you do. But yeah, in terms of what you would expect from a Düsseldorf Alt beer, it looks pretty much what I would expect from this style, I can say that. But let's look at the aroma and see how we get on. This should be interesting. Oh, that is nice. Now, I'm going to say straight away, I don't find this, compared to alt beers that I have had, and I had one recently from Hoover's Hausbrauerei, which is one of the big Düsseldorf breweries, but this one, it doesn't smell madly different. You know, barrel aging can affect the aroma profile of beers quite a lot, but I don't think this one has done all that much to the aroma. You can still smell the kind of distinctive alt beer characteristics in this. It just smells a little bit more kind of vanilla-y and oaky underneath. So that's interesting, yeah. So yeah, backbone of the beer, yeah, you can smell that smooth American oak. Remember, American oak is different from European oak. European oak will give you a more kind of dry character, whereas the American one is a slightly smoother and sweeter vanilla type oaky note. So yeah, you do get that lovely smooth oaky character, a little bit of vanilla out of this beer. On top of that, you can smell a nice wee bit of a kind of crisp, wholemeal brown bready sort of thing. Lovely, sweet, brown bready characteristics out of this one. Again, it's a sort of wholemeal thing, but a lot of sweetness in this beer. But you've also got a bit of that kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity cookie sort of thing, and you do definitely get a bit of an oily caramel in this one. The alt beers, it's a style that I really enjoy, but you know, living in Sweden, you don't get too many breweries that make these, which I think is a shame. But yeah, in that area, you have the Dortmunder Helles, you've got the Köln Kölsch, and then of course you have the Düsseldorf Alt beers. So this is quite interesting. This is very interesting for sure. Oh, we're getting a bit of smoke on the water now, there you go. But yeah, the malty side of this is really nice. It gives you everything you would want from the Alt beer. So on the hoppy side of things then, there's a little bit of an earthiness in there, for sure, but it's quite smooth once again. Wee touch of herbal character. You do get a little bit of a floral aromaticity, and at the front of the nose there's a nice kind of light grassy character coming out of this one. So yeah, I really do like how this beer goes about its business from that perspective. So yeah, everything you would want from a Düsseldorf Alt beer, but it has a sort of it does have a really nice kind of malty. It's got a really nice kind of malty note to it, and the hoppy character is there too. But on the fruity side of things, again, yeah, it's everything that you would want. So there's a soft kind of blackcurranty note to it, definitely a little bit more of an oily fig, and I'm getting just a wee hint of like a slightly sharper blackberry in this one. So yeah, really nice smelling alt beer, this I have to say. But let's taste it and see how we get on. So yeah, this one is the Friedrichshain from Brauerei, the side project of Strassenbräu's brewer. Let's do this. Slange, skål, cheers, prost. That's really nice. Again, the barrel aging is really subtle in this one. It doesn't affect the flavour all that much. To me, if I was to taste this, blind, you know, and I was told, you know, if I was told it was an alt beer, I wouldn't think there was any barrel aging in this. It's really, really subtle actually. It comes out a wee bit in the aftertaste, but yeah. Yeah, but again, a really, really solid beer. So, let's break this down for you then. You can feel, backbone of the beer, middle third of your palate, you can feel that nice, smooth, slightly oaky, woody sort of thing there. Toward the front of that middle third of the palate, there's a wee bit more, of a kind of vanilla type character. But yeah, on top of that, definitely some nice kind of bread crusty notes for sure. You can feel it's got a little bit of a slightly toasty sort of thing, but sweet brown bread on top of that. But in fairness, it gets more dry and grainy the further into the aftertaste that you go. Yeah. On top of that brown bread, there's a sweet caramel right in the dead centre of the palate. There's a nice kind of there is a nice sort of McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing to it as well, and yeah, you do get one or two little nutty undertones to it as well. It's a nice beer, this one, I like it. On the hoppy side of things, back corners of the palate, a little bit of a smooth, earthy character there, but it does give you a wee bit of dryness as you come further forward, a little bit herbal, bit of floral aromaticity on the front corners of the palate, and a wee bit of a light grassiness around the front curve of the tongue too. But yeah, on the fruity side of things, base of the front third of the palate, smooth brown bread again, bit of an oily, fruity character as well. Wee touch of yeah, there is a wee touch of, on the fruity side of things, there's a wee bit of a kind of figgy, oily figgy note there. As you move further forward, a little bit of a black curranty type vibe as well. So yeah, this is a really interesting beer, this one. The fruity side of things is quite nice and light. In terms of the mouthfeel then, to round off, yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel, I think this one is, for me, it's kind of mid-bodied. Carbonation is really smooth, a nice kind of, just like sort of smooth, slick breadiness to this beer. A little bit of juicy fruity character. And in terms of IBUs, it's interesting because I still get quite a bit of hoppiness out of this one, even though it's barrel aged. Normally your hoppy character would drop out, but I think this one's got about 25 IBUs, but some of that's coming from the grainy side of things too. So yeah, the alt beer I think is really quite nice, this one. So yeah, the Fitzpieper from While I Schnieke, the side project of the Strassenbräu as of April 2022. So let's leave it at that for this one. Next one coming soon. So yeah guys, on the wall, lots of different brewery stickers and things like this. Yeah, pretty awesome, I have to say. You can see some things from all over the place. Lots of Berlin breweries and stuff like this, and things from a little bit further afield. I do like it. I always like seeing brewery stickers in these craft beer places. Alright guys, well, on to our second round of beer tastings then, and the second beer flight. So we have a New England IPA, a West Coast IPA, a Doppelbock, and an Imperial Stout. So this should be really interesting. We've still got one German beer in here, but yeah, if you see a Doppelbock on tap, for me, there's just a rule, you have to try it. There we go. Alright guys, well, time for our fifth beer tasting then. So this one is called Son of a Beach. It comes in at 6.7% ABV, and this one is a New England hazy, whatever you want to call it, IPA. So as you can see, it's got this lovely, very bright yellow hazy colour, exactly as you would expect from a New England IPA. When it poured, it had about a half finger of a frothy, I would say kind of perfect white head, maybe very slightly creamy, but yeah, lovely level of haze on this one. It looks awesome. So remember, the level of haze in these New England IPAs depends on the oat, wheat content and the yeast as well. But yeah, come to think of it, I haven't had New England IPAs from too many different German breweries, so this is something that I also need to keep in mind actually. But yeah, this looks the part, nothing too surprising about its appearance. Let's have a look at the aroma and see how we go. Oh yeah, that is really, really nice. So straight away with this one, the malty base comes across as being quite barley malt-like, because yeah, as I say, there's 6 different things you need to think about with a New England IPA. You get the kind of farmhousey type character, you can also get the kind of Ryland and grainy things. These are a bit more common in American brewed New England IPAs, but then you've got barley malt bread, wheaty bitiness, oaty creaminess, and also a little bit of sweetness. And those 4 elements are more common in European ones. But the thing I'm noticing with this as well, and I always used to say this about the German brewed West Coast IPAs, they're very, very distinctive just because of the breadiness that you get. The very kind of fresh, crisp, bready character that you get from German malt, and you can smell that in this beer. It's got this lovely German pale malt base to it. You can smell that straight away out of this beer. So yeah, backbone of this one, soft bread crust, a little touch of bread crust, lovely soft, bright white bread in there. At the back of the nose there is a little bit of wheaty bitiness, but I find the wheat is very smooth in this, and again, I would say that about, you know, German Hefeweizen too. You can notice this, German wheat is quite smooth compared to wheat from other countries, absolutely. On top of that, there's some nice oaty kind of creamy kind of things, and there's a wee bit of a little kind of McVitie's digestive note out of this one. It doesn't really have that more oily Werther's Original butter candy type thing to it. This is definitely more of a kind of bready New England IPA. But you know, it's German brewed, as I say. For me, German beers always have this lovely bready base to them. On the hoppy side of things, the green component for me is quite bright, but it's also kind of nice and airy at the same time. Teeny bit of earthiness, good little bit of floral character, but for me, the green component really leans toward a more kind of fresh and slightly zesty, grassy character. So yeah, I like how this one goes about its business for sure on the green side of things. Let's look at the fruity side of the beer. So yeah, for me, this one, yeah, it's kind of typical notes you're getting out of this. For me, it's got a nice big oily mango note to it. It's got a wee bit of a kind of apricot-y sort of thing going on. Maybe a little hint of orange. I'd be curious to know what hops are in this one. But yeah, lovely wee bit of juicy mango for me, wee bit of a kind of apricot. You know, I don't get so much of like a stronger passion fruit or whatever, but yeah, I do mainly get a nice kind of tropical note out of the aroma of this beer. So yeah, it goes together really well, this one. I think it's a very nice, I do think this is a very nice smelling New England IPA, but yeah, it certainly has that kind of German breadiness to it, which I do enjoy. So let's crack on with this one then and see how we go. So yeah, this one is Son of a Beach, 6.7% New England IPA. Slange, skull, cheers, prost. Ooh, yeah. That's nice. I mean, first impression of this, it's actually very light and very kind of, it really is quite, it's clean, but at the same time, it's got a little bit of that oaty kind of creamy sort of vibe to it. So this is really interesting mouthfeel actually, but we'll come to that later. But otherwise, it's a very wet, quite juicy New England IPA. It's certainly not the thickest of New Englands that I've come across, and it's interesting that, because if you think about how kind of smooth and creamy some of the Brauhaus beers are in Germany, I would have expected it to be just a wee bit more oaty and creamy. So yeah, this is interesting for sure. Yeah, I like this. I do like this. Yeah, so yeah, just nice, light, drinkable New England IPA. So middle of your palate with this one then. You can feel a little bit of that bread crusty base. On top of that, there's a lovely smooth white bready character in there. Absolutely. And I think the further you go into the aftertaste, you do get a wee more of a graininess out of this beer. But in the back third of the palate, you certainly get a wee bit of a wheaty bitiness there. But then in the middle third of the palate, there's a light, slightly dry, oaty character to this one. But just from this beer, I think this is a really more barley malt leaning New England IPA. I think there's a little bit of oat and a little bit of wheat in it, but I think this is far more barley malt leaning than anything else. So in some ways that kind of makes sense a little bit for German beer. You know, of course, the Reinheitsgebot, you're only supposed to use barley malt, Gerstemalz. So yeah, that's an interesting point, but definitely a very barley malt bready leaning New England IPA, this one. There's not really any sweetness in the malt base. I don't get any kind of biscuity notes out of it, to be honest with you, or anything like that, but it works. It's interesting. I like beers that make you think, and this one does that. On the hoppy side of things, back corners of the palate, there's a little bit of earthiness there. As you move further forward, it gets a wee touch herbal, and as you push toward the front corner of the palate, it's got a little bit of a kind of floral, aromatic sort of thing going on. So yeah, I like how this goes together. Round the front curve of the palate, it's a little bit lighter and more grassy, wee touch zesty, yeah, hoppy side of things is quite nice. On the fruity side of the beer then, yeah, fruity side of the beer for me, Base of that front 30 palate, soft, smooth white bread. Toward the back, a little bit of a juicy mango, one or two wee apricot-y notes. And as you move toward the kind of front half of that front 30 palate, it's actually quite zesty and lemony. I wouldn't be surprised, I was surprised that I was picking up orange in the aroma, because it really is quite zesty and lemony. I wouldn't be surprised if this has got a little bit of like Centennial in it, come to think of it, because it really has that little bit of lemony zest, which is interesting. So maybe a citrus Centennial New England IPA. This one, I've not seen Centennial used in beers for quite some time, but it was always a really nice hop actually. But yeah, quite a lemony zesty fruity character for me with this one, with a bit of apricot and mango and stuff behind it. Interesting beer. Mouthfeel wise, as I say, this one's quite light and drinkable. It's almost got a similar mouthfeel to, like, you know, a Hellas or something like that, very crisp Hellas. So yeah, that's interesting. Quite a wet mouthfeel. For me, this is bottom end of mid-bodied. Carbonation is quite crisp. Hoppy bitterness, I think, is a standard sort of 25-30 IBUs in this one. Malt base, as we said, is quite smooth, not really any sweetness to it, and the fruity side of this beer is quite light and wet, but it also has a wee touch of that yeah, also it's just a wee touch of that kind of zesty lemony character. So an interesting beer, this one. Let's leave it at that. This was the Son of a Beach, a 6.7% New England Hazy IPA. Catch you guys on the next one. Yeah, so another wee cool thing that Marco pointed out to me here, they've got this drawing on the wall of the brewing process. So yeah, this is pretty cool. I really like this too. Always like it when you get nice artwork, and that's one of the awesome things about the craft beer scene. So yeah, the German words, learning new German vocabulary as we go. So there we are, a nice little German depiction of the brewing process. So there we go. Alright guys, beer tasting number 6 then. So for this one, we are going to go to the opposite coast of the US, and we're going to have a look at a West Coast IPA. So this beer is called Hitchhikers. It comes in at 6.5% ABV, and this one is a West Coast IPA. So yeah, you'll know if you've watched the channel for any decent length of time that I'm a big fan of the German brewed West Coast IPAs. I love how the German breadiness kind of blends into the West Coast style. So I'm very curious to see what this one is going to have in store for us. But anyway, you can see that this beer is poured a lovely kind of dark, kind of a more kind of mid-range yellow colour actually. I would say this one, yeah, nice kind of mid-range thing there, but again it poured with about a half finger of a frothy, I would say slightly cream coloured head on this one. Not a lot of carbonation visible, and you can see the beer has a little bit of a kind of natural, unfiltered type haze to it. So in terms of what you'd expect from a West Coast IPA, this one is pretty much in line with that. You can get ones that are a lot more amber and stuff than this, but you know, as I've always said, it depends on the type of malts that you're using, but certainly not out with the realms of possibility from what we should expect from a West Coast IPA in terms of its appearance. So let's have a look at the aroma and see what we get from this one then. Oh yeah, nice smelling beer, absolutely. The aroma of this one certainly is a bit more pungent than the New England IPA. The New England IPA, it was quite hard to pick up the aromas from it. So yeah, that's one thing I would say about it. But yeah, this one, no worries, absolutely no worries. So yeah, first impression of it is it's got that lovely smoothness you would want from the malt base, bit of sweetness in there, big oily fruits, and the fruity, the green component though on this one is a little bit more of a kind of modern take on the West Coast IPA. It's not quite as big and dank and things as we would have been used to back in 2012, 2013, this kind of thing. But a nice smelling beer. Let's break it down. So, nice little bit of bread crust in the backbone there, absolutely. On top of that, smooth white bread. I'm getting a little touch of brown bread out of it as well, but you can smell it's got a lovely bready base. Yeah, on the brown sugary side of things, this is quite interesting because for me, this one has a little bit of that Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy type thing to it. Marco said he thought it was kind of fudgy, and I can see exactly why he would say that. But yeah, it has that lovely. It does have a lovely little bit of quite a a kind of toffee, like brown sugar kind of thing. I like that. So a little bit of Werther's Original toffee kind of thing. Wee bit of a McVitie's Digestive Biscuit as well. But as you always get from these German brewed West Coast IPAs, it's got that lovely big white and slightly wholemeal brown bready kind of thing going on. I love the way the German pale malts mix in with the West Coast IPA style. It's very distinctive for me, and I really enjoy it. I've repeated that a few times in these videos I've been filming in Berlin. But I like this. I like the malty side of this beer. Certainly quite well balanced between the malty, the kind of brown sugary and bready side of things. But on the hoppy side of the beer, I would say that this one is, I would say the green component, it has a wee touch of earthiness. It's got a bit of a bright floral aromaticity, but also quite a wet grassiness. I don't find this one overly zesty. As I say, the hoppy character for me in this one is not overly dank, but remember, difference between New England IPAs and West Coast IPAs. West Coast IPAs always had a lot of early addition hopping, which is the one that would give you the kind of big dank bitterness and stuff, but you also have a really nice kind of bright floral aromatic kind of thing going on with this one too. So that's one of the things. You do have a kind of you can smell with this one. I think this is more relying on the late addition and the dry hopping. And remember, New England IPAs use late addition and dry hopping, whereas West Coast IPAs will use all three. So I like that about this one. This one does have a mix. You can smell a wee bit of an early edition hop, but I think this is mainly a late and dry hopped beer, this one. So on that note, so you do get a little bit of a deep floral aromaticity. It's got a bit of a brighter spiciness to it, but a wet grassiness, like I said. On the fruity side of things, it's definitely quite nice and oily. I get some juicy mango out of it, and the oily mango, wee bit of an apricot-y kind of thing underneath as well. Maybe a wee hint of passion fruit, but I'm also getting some really nice kind of oily orange out of this one. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is something like Citra and Mosaic that's in this. The aroma feels quite familiar. Nice light tangerine oranges, juicy mango, bit of apricot, wee bit of passion fruit. There's just something really familiar about the fruity component in this beer. So take a bit of time to enjoy the aroma of this. This is nice. Let's get stuck into it though and see how we go. This is the Hitchhiker's 6.5% West Coast IPA. Yeah, that is pretty solid actually. As I was expecting, it is quite a bready leaning West Coast IPA, but the further you go into the aftertaste with it, it does start to show you a little bit more sweetness. So it works. I like this, and it's got the nice oily fruity character and a bit of the hoppiness too. But I would say that this one, it's not as bitter as you would have got back in 2010, 2012, these sort of things. I think it does have a little bit of that lighter bitterness to it. But I like how this goes together. It gets a thumbs up from me, this. I like a West Coast IPA. This one certainly delivers what I would want. So let's break the flavour down for you. Middle third of the palate then. Backbone of the beer, a little bit of a kind of fresh bread crusty sort of thing. Smooth, white bready character on top of that. Wee bit of a brown bready note as well. You get a bit of the brown bready graininess the further into the aftertaste that you go. But on top of that breadiness, you can feel there's a little circle there. And for me, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a bit of golden promise in this, because toward the edges of that circle there's a little bit of a McVitie's Digestive Biscuit sort of thing. On top of that, you have a little bit of a kind of Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy type vibe to it. There's a little bit of a butter candy, butterscotchy vibe, and then McVitie's Digestive Biscuit. In the dead centre of the palate, you do maybe get a little bit of that. It's definitely like a sweet kind of toffee, Werther's Original type thing. It's not like a straight up caramel, so I can see exactly what Marco was meaning when he was talking to me about this beer. So the malt base is quite nice, but this definitely leans toward that more kind of bready side of things. But it's not got a big oily kind of caramel vibe to it, this one. But as I've told you before, West Coast IPAs for me can go two ways. They can go down the bready biscuity route, like Pliny the Elder from Russian River, or they can go down the more oily caramelly route, like Sierra Nevada torpedo sort of thing. This one's a more bready, biscuity one for sure. But yeah, malty side of this beer is quite nice. Let's focus on the hoppy side then. Back corners of the palate, definitely a wee bit of earthiness, which would be fitting. I think there's mosaic in this, but as you move further forward, it becomes quite spicy and floral. And the more that you drink of this beer, you do get the impression that there is a fair bit of early edition hop in this. So you get a nice spiciness there and a bit of a kind of floral aromaticity. But round the front curve of the palate, it's a bit lighter and grassy, but it is a wet grassiness you get from this one. So yeah, front third of the palate and fruity side of things then, let's look at that. Yeah, the front third of your palate, you get a nice kind of smooth brown bread. You do get a bit more of a brown bready sort of thing to it, and on top of that, that oily bubble where the fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. Toward the back of the front third of the palate, a little bit of passion fruit. As you come further forward, a wee bit of a more oily, mango-y character for sure. I don't get so much of the kind of apricot-y, papaya type things I was getting in the aroma. For me, it's passion fruit and mango, and as you go into the front half of that front third of your palate, a more tangerine-y, orangey type note. It does have a wee bit of zest. So I think this one, I've got a feeling this is like Citra and Mosaic or Citra and Amarillo, something like that. I'm tempted to say it's maybe, it's a wee bit more zesty, so I'm thinking it might be Amarillo. But then again, it has a wee bit of earthiness in the back corners of the palate, which is usually Mosaic. So one of the two. I like playing guess the hops with these beers. But yeah, fruity side of this one is familiar. It's oddly familiar, but I think it is really nice. Mouthfeel wise, yeah, mouthfeel wise, we can say this one, it's, yeah, top end and mid-bodied for me, smooth carbonation, nice bit of oily slickness to it. In terms of hoppy bitterness, I think this is about 60-ish IBUs. It gets more bitter the more you drink of it. The malt base is nice and smooth and bready. It's got a bit of sweetness on top of it, of course, which comes out later, and then you've got that nice big oily fruity character to it. A nice West Coast IPA, definitely. And as I say, I like these German brewed ones. So yeah, let's go back to something a wee bit more German. So catch you in a second with tasting number 7. So yeah guys, Marco was telling me that they do a lot of art projects and things in the place here. So yeah, this is a fairly recent art project that they've done. So they've painted up this kind of back corner of the bar. Apparently before the corona pandemic it was very white and just kind of, you know, very clean and stuff like that, but they've kind of redecorated and I think it's pretty awesome actually. I love when you get little kind of artisan artworks and things like this. So yeah, very cool. There's another little bit just around here as well. Yeah, no idea about what kind of art style this is or anything, but yeah, it's like heavy metal artwork. It's very, very cool. So yeah, another little random corner of the bar for you to look at, and you can see beer barrel beer stools. You can't beat that. Alright guys, beer tasting number 7 then, and we're going back to something German this time, and one of my favourite styles of German beer. So yeah, this beer is called Stadthirsch. So Stadthirsch is like the town deer, stag to be specific. Thank you to Marco again for helping me translate that one, because I recognised Hirsch and I was like, you know, I was like, oh, I know this word. But yeah, Marco helped me with that. So yeah, this beer is called the City Stag, basically. But it's a Doppelbock coming in at 8.2% ABV. And yeah, I love Doppelbocks. So if you've got a Doppelbock on tap, it's a bit of a rule here on Rampant Lion Reviews that we are going to review this one. So yeah, when this beer poured, once again, it had about a half finger of a frothy head to it. I mean, the colour of this one for me is a light sort of beige. You can see this, the can yourself, it's got quite a nice lovely beigey character. But in terms of colour, this beer, it's a kind of mix of chestnut and mahogany. This is exactly what you would expect of a Doppelbock. Remember, these beers are lager beers, so that it's bottom fermenting yeast, cold temperature fermentation. But yeah, basically a very, very strong Dunkel beer. But yeah, I grew up in Scotland. I love Scotch ales, Belgian quadruples, Doppelbocks for me, absolutely love them. But yeah, in terms of what you would expect appearance-wise, this one is really nice. You can see it's got a bit of a natural haze to it, one or two little carbonation bubbles, but not too much visible. So yeah, everything you would want from this style in terms of appearance. Let's look at the aroma and see how we go. Oh man, that's... I love it, I love it. There's just something about these big brown sugary beers that I enjoy so much. I don't get to drink as many Doppelbocks as I would like, So to be in Berlin and try one is just awesome. This is lovely. I'm going to say straight away, it's got the right balance between breadiness, it's got the brown sugary sweetness, the red fruitiness, the hoppy smoothness. It's got everything you would want. Let's break this down a wee bit more. Yeah, so it's almost got a little touch of like it's almost got a very slight smokiness to it, which is kind of interesting. Almost smells a little bit like a Rauchbock, actually. So right up my street, my whole love of beer began with the Bamberg Rauch beers. So I've got a feeling this one has a little bit of Rauch malt in it. 90% sure that it does, actually. But let's break it down for you then. Backbone of the beer, you have this lovely smooth woody character. On top of that, a little bit of bread crust as always. Nice smooth German rye bread in this one, absolutely. Within that though, you can smell there's a little bit of nuttiness, and you also have this kind of rauchy smoke sort of thing. So remember, the main difference between Scottish peat and German Rauch is like the Maillard reactions you get when you cook meat. It smells very meaty, whereas Scottish peat is more earthy and kind of grassy. And it's definitely German Rauch that's in this one. So I wouldn't be surprised if this has a little bit of Bamberg Rauch malt in it. You can smell that big meaty just smokiness out of this. I'm pretty certain this has got a bit of Rauch malt in it. It's just a beautiful smelling beer. This is like the most awesome surprise you can get when you try a Doppelbock. If it's got a bit of Rauch malt in it, it's just ridiculous. But yeah, awesome. Yeah, you get one or two little nutty things to the beer as well. The woodiness, as you said, but the brown bread, there's quite a bit of brown sugar to this one. It's a toasty brown sugar. There's a bit of an oily caramel in there as well. And you do get, I think there's a little touch of vanilla in this, but everything that you would want from a Doppelbock. But I'm pretty sure this is a Rauchbock. I don't think this is simply a Doppelbock, to be honest with you. On the hoppy side of things, a little bit of smooth earthiness, little bit of floral character, and a kind of wet grassiness too. The green component for me comes across as being quite wet. Fruity side of the beer is really not that pungent. You do get a little bit of a red fruity kind of vibe to it, a little bit of a black currant, a blackberry sort of thing. The big hop they like to use in these Doppelbocks is Northern Brewer. And I think they might have used that in this, but I think the Rauch malt is kind of taken away from the fruity side of things. But it's very nice, and as I say, I just got a nice surprise with it. I love Rauch malt. I think I'm going to enjoy this. So as I always say, take a bit of time to enjoy the aroma. This one is the Stadhirsch, the city stag, the city deer. So yeah, 8.2% ABV. Let's do this. Slàinte, skull, cheers, prost. That's definitely got some smoke malt in it. That is Rauch malted. I can tell you right away. Yeah, this is one of these beers where the flavour, or the aroma, translates very much into the flavour. So you've got a little bit of a bread crusty sort of thing going on. Lovely kind of smooth bread crusty note there, but it gets a bit drier the further you go into the aftertaste. On top of that, there's a little bit of a kind of smooth woody character as well. Absolutely. The brown bread is sitting there. You've got that nice kind of quite dense but very smooth German rye bready character. Within the rye bread, you're getting all these kind of smoky, rauchy notes. So yeah, it's that lovely kind of meaty smoke. Toward the front of that middle third of your palate, there's a wee bit of a nuttiness in there. Yeah, it goes together really nicely. On top of the bread, that's when you start to get the brown sugars, and of course that's one of the focuses of the Doppelbock. So I think this beer, the brown sugar's got a little touch of a leathery character to it, and that usually tells you it's a slightly longer wort boil. So nice little leathery layer of brown sugar. On top of that though, there's a bit of a circle there, so you get a wee bit of toasty brown sugar sitting on top of that. In the dead centre of your palate, you get a little touch of that kind of oily, caramelly note. But yeah, lovely malt base in this one. That is of course the focus of the Doppelbock lager beers. Really, really nice, but I'm pretty certain this is a Rauchbock. I'm almost 100% sure this has a little bit of Rauch malt in it. It's not overly smoky, but it's just added to the subtlety. On the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate, there's a little bit of a smooth earthiness in there, but as you move further forward, it's got a little bit of a herbal character, and as you reach the kind of front corners of the palate, a little bit of a nice kind of floral aromaticity to it. Round the front curve of the palate, a wee bit lighter and grassy, little touch zesty, but yeah, front third of the palate then, with the fruity side of things. The base of the front third of the palate, lovely kind of smooth brown bready notes to it, and on top of that you've got the oily fruits. So let's look at that. So yeah, when you take the beer in, it does have a little teeny touch of raisin to it. Underneath, nice oily figgy character. As you come further forward, a lighter, slightly dry blackcurranty note, and then the dry fruits really linger there into the aftertaste. It's got a lovely kind of dry fruity note to it, this one, the further into it that you go. But yeah, I really like how this beer goes together in that sense. This is a lovely, lovely Doppelbock. I'm pretty sure this is a Rauchbock. In terms of the mouthfeel, this one, for me, bottom end to full bodied. It's one of the thicker Doppelbocks I've had recently actually, but smooth carbonation, lovely big oily character to it, little touch of hoppy bitterness. I'd say it's about 20-25 IBUs though, but the malt base, smooth, bit of sweetness, bit of toastiness, and you've also got that nice oily fruit. But a very, very nice Doppelbock, this one. This could potentially be my favourite beer that I've tried so far, but we do have one more. But yeah, for me, I really like the Doppelbock here. The Märzen and the Doppelbock so far are the ones that I have enjoyed the most. But yeah, this was the Stadthirsch 8.2% Doppelbock. Pretty sure it's a Rauchbock though. Catch you guys with our final tasting in just a minute. So yeah guys, I love stuff like this. This is an old picture of Neue Bahnhofstrasse, which is where we are in Berlin at this moment. So yeah, you can see, really nice old picture of the street. Pretty awesome. Yeah, love this stuff. Alright guys, well, time for our 8th and final tasting then here at Strassenbräu in Ostkreuz in Berlin. So yeah, the last beer that we're going to have a look at is a style that you normally would not associate with Germany, but Marco, that I've been talking to throughout my time here, was quite excited about me trying this one. So yeah, I think if he's excited about me trying it, he must think it's pretty good. So yeah, this particular beer is called From Prussia with Love. Obviously a take on the James Bond film From Russia with Love, but Prussia, of course, the birthplace of Germany, but now part of Poland, incidentally. But yeah, this one is a 9.3% Russian Imperial Stout. So yeah, this should be pretty cool. As you can see, this one's poured a lovely dark sort of ebony rosewood colour. When it came out the tap, it had a half finger of a frothy, I would say kind of medium tan head. That's faded away to be a nice kind of thin foamy layer though. Not a lot of carbonation visible in this one or two big bubbles sticking to the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there, but I mean overall it looks pretty nice. It looks exactly as you would expect from an Imperial Stout. We can't really say much more about that. Lovely big dark ebony rosewood colour. And I haven't tried all that many German brewed Imperial Stouts actually, but the ones I have been pretty good. As I've repeated a few times, it's really cool to see German brewers now having a go at the kind of American style craft beers, although the Russian Imperial Stout I believe actually is another English style of beer if I remember correctly. Correct me on that if I'm wrong in the comment section below. So yeah, but lovely looking beer this one. Let's take a look at the aroma and see how we go. Oh, this is properly old school this. This is straight away with this one, you can smell that this has had a long wort boil, okay? So this is, it's not barrel aged, it's not anything else. This is just an old school RIS, Russian Imperial Stout. It's great. It's awesome. So the first impression of the aroma is just, the first thing to comment on is the smoothness. This beer has that big, leathery, smooth character. I think this is going to be really, really nice. Reminds me a little bit of some of the Finnish Imperial Stouts that I had in recent times. But as I've said to you before on the channel, I think the Nordic Imperial Stouts are very difficult to beat in terms of mouthfeel and things, but just from the aroma, I think this one is leaning towards the kind of Nordic country Imperial Stouts. But yeah, let's break that aroma down for you a wee bit more. So yeah, backbone of this beer, it's a you do get that kind of smooth, woody kind of character out of this one. On top of that though, a very dense, but thick and sweet, like rye bready character there. It doesn't smell grainy, it just smells really big, like really thick and smooth. On top of that, you get these big, leathery, kind of treacle molasses type brown sugars there, and it's the leathery note that you get out of this that tells you this has had a long wort boil. I wouldn't be surprised. This is definitely above a 6-hour wort boil, which isn't unheard of for an imperial stout. Nerd Brewing, one of my local breweries in Malmö, they leave their wort boiling like overnight to let the whole thing just caramelise and stuff. So you definitely get that big, leathery, brown sugary character out of this one. So yeah, this is really nice. Big, leathery brown sugars. On top of that, I do get a little bit of a chocolatey cocoa nib kind of thing. It's got a kind of, I think it's about a 50% cocoa chocolate I get out of this, but there's a lot of kind of brown, as I say, that brown bready character for me dominates. Interestingly though, for a Russian Imperial Stout, you might expect a little bit more of a black malty presence. It will maybe come out in the flavour, but I'm not getting so much of it in the aroma. Yeah, this is really nice. These guys are fucking loud. Yeah. This one, the malt base in this is lovely. Big, sweet treacle molasses. I do get a little bit of biscuit out of it and a sweeter caramel too. Nutty, woody undertones to it. Everything you would want from a Russian Imperial Stout. This is a lovely smelling beer, this one, from the malty side of things. On the hoppy side, not too much to report. A little bit of earthiness, teeny little bit of floral and grassy character. The green component for me of this beer is very smooth. I really like that. On the fruity side of things then, yeah, big oily red fruity notes. So for me, there's quite a little bit of an oily figgy character to this one. Good bit of blackcurrant and maybe a little bit of a juicy blackberry sitting on top of it. So it's a really nice smelling beer, this one. Really like this. The aroma of this is absolutely beautiful. Very curious to see what this one is going to have in store for us. So yeah, this is from Prussia with Love, a 9.3% Russian Imperial Stout, my last beer here at Strassenbräu. So yeah, let's do this. Slange, Skål, cheers, and a massive thank you to Marco for all of his tips on the beer. Let's look at this. Cheers, Prost. Oh yeah, that's nice. That is good. Straight away I'm going to say though, nowhere near as thick as the Nordic Imperial Stouts in terms of mouthfeel, but flavour-wise, yeah. But we're a bit spoiled in the Nordic countries with these big Imperial Stouts. The mouthfeels that we get out of these things are ridiculous. But what I said about this beer being like a really old-school Russian Imperial Stout is nice, but it has that smoothness, that German smoothness. I love this when you try beers from different countries. You start to notice trends. You can see this. This is the German take. This is basically a German take on a Russian Imperial Stout. Gives you that lovely kind of Brauhaus smoothness that I've always gone on about. Very nice beer. Yeah, really like this. Big thumbs up to them for this. And the thing is, it does have a little bit of that kind of Schwarzbier type element to it. So yeah, it has got, you do get a little bit of that Schwarzbier element. It's interesting, but remember the Schwarzbier is a lager, it's not an ale like this one. But yeah, let's break this beer down for you then. So, backbone of the beer, that roasty, toasty, black malty character is a lot more obvious in the flavour than it is in the aroma. I wasn't picking up any black malt really in the thing there, but this beer has that dry, roasty, toasty, black malt backbone. On top of that, nice kind of bread crusty notes, brown bread, that dense, thick, but very smooth brown bready character coming out of this one. Really nice. Then on top of that, in the middle third of the palate, you get that big, thick circle, and you have within that the big leathery brown sugars. But if you go toward the dead centre of your palate, It has that kind of treacle molasses sort of vibe to it, which is really nice. But again, it's quite a dry thing. It's not overly sweet. So this is a very long boil. It's a very long boil Imperial Stout, this one, I'm pretty sure. But it works. Toward the front of that middle third of your palate, you get a little bit of a nutty, woody kind of vibe to it. But yeah, I really like how this goes together. Absolutely. Yeah, really nice take on the Russian Imperial Stout. It's properly old school, this. It's not like a kind of modern craft beer. It actually reminds me of the plain dark beer that I had from New Barnes Brewery back in Scotland. They do a really old school kind of Russian Imperial Stout like this, and this beer is very similar to that actually, so I like it. Other than that, I don't think there's anything more to say about the malty side of things. So the hoppy side of the beer, back corners of the palate, you do have a good little bit of earthiness from this, so the hops are contributing to the bitterness quite a bit. As you move further forward, a little bit of a kind of herbally sort of thing. As you reach the front corners of the palate, a little bit of a floral aromaticity. Round the front curve of the palate, a wee bit lighter and grassy. There is a wee touch of zestiness there. So yeah, hoppy notes in this one are noticeable. More noticeable than they were in the aroma. That's definitely fair to say. Let's focus on the fruity side of the beer. Yeah. Back corners, so front third of the palate, then fruity side of things. Smooth brown bread again forming underneath that. Oily bubble with the fruity esters on top. For me, it has a wee touch of raisiny sharpness when you take it in, but for me it's a little bit figgy, a little bit black curranty, and maybe just a little bit oily and blackberry like into the aftertaste. But yeah, this is a big, smooth, bready Russian Imperial Stout. This is a really nice example of the style. It feels very old school, as I say. New Barnes plain dark beer, this one is very similar to that. I like it. I really do like this one. So yeah, awesome stuff. On the mouthfeel side of things then, like I say, for me this is like it's like top end to mid body, bottom end to full body. It doesn't quite have the same thickness and mouthfeel we would get from the Nordic Imperial Stouts, but we're spoiled with these beers. So yeah, top end to mid body for me, smooth carbonation, you know, it's got that German smoothness to it, as I've said. In terms of IBUs, yeah, I don't find this beer overly bitter, but I think it must be about 50 or 60 IBUs, both from the malt and from the hops. Malt is, as we said, those smooth breadiness, bit of sweetness to it, but also a nice kind of little fruity character. So yeah, the fruitiness in this one for me is a mixture of wet and oily, but a lovely Imperial Stout, this one. I can see why Marco was quite excited for me to try this one. So yeah, this is our last beer from Prussia with Love, a 9.3% Russian Imperial Stout. Very impressed with this. So we'll leave it at that for just now. We'll go outside, I'll give you my final thoughts as we always do. But yeah, that is the 8th and final beer tasting here at Strassenbräu. Catch you guys in a second. Alright guys, well that is me finished at Strassenbräu on Neue Bahnhofstraße here in Ostkreuz in Berlin. So yeah, I had a really nice time here. I got to try 8 different beers. In total it cost me 19 euros, so that's about 190 Swedish kroner, maybe £17 sterling, about $22 American, and I did of course leave a tip for Marco. Have to really compliment Marco on his service. He was awesome, told me a lot about the beers, answered all my questions and stuff like this. It was a really nice experience. So yeah, big up to Marco for his service. He also told me some interesting things about the company. So apparently these guys started back in about 2015. The area that I was sitting in, which was if you go in over to the right hand side, that is where the brew kit used to sit originally. So I was sitting in the place where they used to brew their beer, but they now have their brewery in a kind of industrial unit in another part of the city, and they've just been kind of gradually building up their production from there. But yeah, all in all, to come and visit the Strassenbräu tap room has been really nice. I very much enjoyed it. So this kind of used to be a brew pub, but now it's more of a tap room, I have to say. But yeah, the quality of the beer is really nice, so I highly recommend it. And if you get Marco serving you,
it will be a privilege. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Check out my social media, check out Strassenbräu's social media, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. We're going to film a few more out and about videos while I'm here in Berlin. Ciao just now.